Hey friends, welcome to the Wedding Pros podcast, the podcast where we talk about being creative and making money in the wedding industry. We have a really good episode. Jason and I are fresh off the plane from a wedding that we shot in Napa over the weekend. And we thought it would be a great topic to hop into, figuring we just came from a destination wedding, to talk about destination weddings.
Fresh in our mind.
Yeah, and what's great about them, what's very challenging about them. And if you are new to the wedding industry, especially photography and videography, hopefully there are some things in this podcast where you can learn about the challenges, because there's a lot that goes into, I think, the pre-production that really makes or breaks your experience.
Yeah, and for I can't even imagine what a planner does, by the way, like how hard that must be to be a planner for a destination. Like, that's why the people specialize in it, I guess, but it is, man,
it's a lot. But before we hop in, guys, if you're listening to us on the podcast, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, make sure that you are giving us a review, that you're giving us 5 stars, all the things. It really goes a long way in helping the podcast and just generally helping other wedding creatives get to know about this podcast. The idea behind this is really just giving experience. Like, we have a ton of awesome guests on the podcast. If this is your first time listening, go back there. We've talked to plenty of photographers, wedding videographers, planners, etc. And it's just really great people giving their experience on what they've learned from their years in the industry. And that's really the point. Make sure that you're giving us a 5-star review. And if you didn't know, you can also find us on YouTube as well.
Yes. And there's, there is some content more targeted at if you are a wedding creative. And for us, that's obviously there's a lot of, these are not the only creatives. You're a creative, but if you're a filmmaker or you're a photographer, there's some content on there specifically, mainly targeted at filmmakers, because that's what we are. Anyway, so we were thinking about this, and I said we should talk about doing destination weddings, because I feel like it's something that I weirdly know more about than I think I do, because I don't consider myself a destination wedding filmmaker, right? We're doing a lot of weddings, and only a small percentage of them are destination every year. And so I thought about that, and I was like, well, maybe we're doing more, because oftentimes we're driving 4 hours, 5 hours, sometimes 6 hours on a weekend. Most of our weekends we're shooting, maybe not most, but a good percentage of our weekends we're shooting Maine, Vermont, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, maybe New York.
Yep.
That is our market.
Yeah, we if you don't know about kind of our business structure is we are very team based. So we have a couple teams that will go out and shoot photo or video throughout the New England area, and usually once a week we have at least one that's in Maine, Vermont, kind of 3 to 4 hours away probably from where our office is. And so, you might consider that destination. For us, that's just kind of like
a normal weekend.
A normal weekend. Maybe we have to stay overnight. Maybe we drive 3 to 4 hours, and that's just kind of a normal thing.
We stay overnight often. I thought, okay, we need to define what is a destination wedding just for the purpose of this conversation. Sure. So for this conversation, for us, the destination wedding is a wedding where you get on a plane. Yep. Basically, we'll just say if you get on a plane, that's what we're talking about here. And it's specifically multi-day situations. Either you're getting on a plane or you're staying multiple days.
Yep.
So for instance, if I go to Maine and I'm there for 2-3 days, I would consider that a destination wedding. If I'm just showing up the day of, shooting and leaving the day of, maybe I stay the night in a hotel just because I don't want to drive till 3 a.m., we don't really consider that a destination wedding. But anyway. The multi-day thing, the planes thing, I think that's what makes the entire destination experience kind of what it is.
Yeah, and I think it's important, if you are just starting out, or maybe you've been doing it for a while and you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, just figuring it out case by case, I think it's important for you to decide early on, what does qualify like a flight compared to a drive. For us, I think pretty early we decided, after New York for us, which I think is, it's 250 miles.
Yeah, for New York City, it's about 250.
250. After New York, we essentially tell people they have to fly us. Now, at one point, maybe we're like, okay, we'll go down to New Jersey, and we'll do that. And then there are also some places like in Maine, we can drive 5 hours away and there's no
6
airports.
hours.
So, we can only drive up there. So, kind of deciding what is flight worthy versus what is just, and how you're going to charge for that. Like, we typically are including 100 miles of round trip travel just as a part of any given package. After that initial 100 miles is 50 cents a mile. And if it gets to 150 miles from our office, so 300 miles round trip, we're forcing people to put us up overnight. 250 miles, it's 2 nights. And then after that, it's essentially flights and 2 overnights and blah, 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 blah. It just keeps on adding from there. So figuring out your structure, I think, is pretty important, because then you can just say to somebody, hey, this is what my thing is. Like, this is what we do. And it's just, that's what determines it.
And this is why it matters. And this is why it seems like boring and just a bunch of random numbers we're throwing out. But like, I feel like, Jared, like, people don't understand how hard it is to do destination weddings. And I think that in our industry, but I'm talking specifically, like, the clients don't even know. Like, and maybe because they have a destination wedding planner who is doing their job really well and the client doesn't know how hard it is, which is great. Or they're just delusional and don't know what goes into making a wedding. But I don't think people really understand. So you need to know your numbers, because you need to be able to explain to them like what it is that goes into making this. And so I thought today we would kind of talk about, now that we kind of defined what is a destination wedding, what are we talking about here in this podcast? I want to put out there, by no means are we like I said, we're not destination wedding filmmakers. Like,
I think it's a good conversation for us because we still are in the process of learning and we still suck at it in a lot of ways.
Yes. And there are people who are way better than us about it. We've done a lot of them. We've been on a lot of planes, not just for weddings, but for commercial work. So we've traveled with gear a lot. We it's not like we don't know anything, but we're not by any stretch of imagination the authorities on this subject. And, one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up, because I think it's an important conversation in our industry in terms of like, man, doesn't it seem like a lot of people think this is the end all be all of like what it means to work in the wedding industry? Yeah.
It's like, we talk about it all the time. There are a bunch of different models to creating your wedding company. But it seems like, to be successful is to be traveling to Napa, to Italy, to do whatever, no matter really what you do. If you're a planner, if you're a photographer, videographer, even a florist, it's like, oh, I'm a destination person, therefore celebrities want me, they want to fly me out. It's like, that's kind of what is deemed as like super successful, which can be the case.
Desirable. Like, everybody thinks they want it, right?
Yeah. But also, I don't think everyone has to be a destination wedding professional to be successful.
And I don't think it actually, in my experience, like there's definitely more opportunity to charge big bucks. And if you are wanting to be at the top of the top of the top of the game, you have to do destination and you have to know what you're doing.
Yep.
And you have to understand how to price it and how to make money on it.
Yep. And the thing is you and I probably both know people that don't do destination weddings that actually make a lot more money than the people doing destination weddings.
No, but we also know people at the top of the game, and that's because they're in that game, they're making a lot of money. And so I think it's just like, the sword definitely cuts both ways when it comes to destination, and it's like probably much less of us are going to ever turn destination into big money. Most of us are going to turn it into portfolio builders, and I think there's a reason. So before we get into it, I think everyone should want to do at least some destination wedding, because A, it's a good experience for you as a professional. B, I think it looks great in your portfolio, even with local brides. Even if you're not branding yourself, I think it's a good to have.
It's good marketing.
It's good marketing. I think it helps. And I don't think if you're just going like, because I really want this beautiful piece, I don't think you need to make a ton of money on it. If it's only like a couple times a year, I think it's fine to just invest in yourself and invest in your business or whatever. Treat it as an extended vacation.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to do it.
Yeah.
What we're talking about in this episode too is like, we're not just talking about that, even though I think it's fine. Like, it's like, okay, what do we love and what do we hate about destination weddings? And like, one of the things that we hate about destination weddings, and we'll just get into it here, is it's so freaking expensive for you, the provider.
Yeah.
It
yeah.
is, and it's so hard to even quantify your costs sometimes.
Yep. It's hard and since it's hard to quantify for yourself, it's even going to be harder to convey that to the client, right? Like, so we just went on this trip. We are based in New England, and we shot a wedding out in Calabasas, California, or not Calabasas.
No, it was not those places at all. It was called Calistoga.
Calistoga, and that's in the Napa Valley, and
It's the rich part.
yeah, and so what we quickly realized is that we have a lot of gear, and we're using newer gear. We're shooting on all cinema cameras now, and so this was kind of the first, there's maybe second time we've traveled with these cameras before.
This much, because they also wanted a live stream, and
Yeah,
it was complex. And then they got rescheduled 4 times because of COVID.
Yep. So by the time we had everything packed, we realized we had 7 bags we had to check, and it's only you and I flying out there, and then we're meeting up with Ryan Coda in
Great guy.
California. Great guy, that Ryan guy. He's a really good dude. So 7 check bags. 2 of them are overweight, so that's an additional $150 per bag. So there's $300 plus each $50 bag, 5 more, $250. So that's $550.
We spent $1,100 on bags, and like the thing is like we would have done it anyway. By the way, because we were like, we're gonna nail this, and we're still like, we're always investing in ourselves as a company. So we're like, this is an investment.
Portfolio piece, whatever.
We wanted to shoot it a certain way, and then we're not going to take no for an answer. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Maybe we'll figure out a way to get the client to spot us the money. I don't know, but we were going to do it anyway.
Yep.
And so, but that was really hard to quantify, right? And it kind of just swept into us until like the 2 days before you're packing your stuff, and you're like, oh crap, like we got all these bags. And then like, you make a decision, right, about hotels, right? So they move it from San Francisco, which you can get a very nice hotel for like, $250.
Yep.
To a place that I'm not familiar with, which is Calistoga. I'm familiar with Calistoga Ranch, which is like $1,800 a day, and I'm familiar with the Four Seasons, but I'm not familiar with the area that much. And so they're like, oh, we're at this resort, and I'm like, and I always tell people this, like, to the best of your ability, if you can get the couple to put you up at the hotel they're at, I think it helps a lot, because it makes one of the things about destination weddings is you never have enough time.
Yep.
They're so exhausting and they're so tiring. So they put the hotel they happen to be at was $1,000 a night.
Yep.
And they gave us a $2,000 travel budget.
That includes
which they
flights,
also,
that includes rental car, that includes hotel, that includes $100 breakfast every morning. that we had to pay because there's no other breakfast place apparently that we could go to.
Yes.
At least that was convenient.
Some of it was COVID related, so
yes.
Like some of this isn't totally a great analog for the future, but like I think what is related is like you don't know about a location no matter how much you research it until you get there. And so like every little thing like about the
just having base experience too of like, well, this is going to cost this much because I've been there before. Like, unless you had done it before, you wouldn't have realized like, oh, actually we should probably rethink our packing situation before 3 days beforehand.
This kind of crap always happens, like, and like it's very expensive.
Yep. And
we would have had to tell this couple like, hey, we're going to stay farther away, but we're going to go another day ahead of time.
Yep.
Or, oh, you need to give us an extra $1,000 travel.
Yep.
Which some people are gonna be like, no, I don't want you. I want to, like, I'm paying as much for travel as I am for your entire bill.
Yeah.
Or something like that,
Which, in this case, it probably was around the same. That was a very expensive place to stay, so it probably was up there.
It was close. It was close.
But helping them understand that up front is like, and also having it in your contract, like, that's something that I've learned is like, hey, if you change the location, your details might change too.
Your travel needs to be renegotiated.
Needs to be reevaluated, and it could be cheaper, by the way. More than
mine
likely,
mine will never be cheaper.
yeah. But yeah, it's that's pretty important. And for us, we should talk about this later because I think there is a whole there's a group of people that only do destination weddings, right? that they'd maybe do like 10, 15, 20 weddings a year. They're all destination weddings. And then how they feel towards people that are doing destination just as portfolio builders. There's like a whole side conversation.
Maybe you should get a more stable business.
But for us, I think you and I were like, well, we're going to pay for it no matter what. So we weren't being super pinchy with pennies.
No.
Like we were being like, okay, well,
we
really
know the planner. We like the planner. There was a range of things that checked a couple boxes for us in terms of the look of the couple, the location, and it just and the fact that it moved to Napa actually made it even better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so there's a lot to like about the wedding. And by the way, when we get to the wedding, the couple was wonderful. It was very fun. It was brutal. It was really hot. It was a lot of work. There was the weather and that, but in general, I don't regret any of these decisions at all. I think we're going to end up with a really good product, and it's going to be a great portfolio builder, and it's going to make us money. Mm-hmm. But you got to be thinking that way. You either have to make money and charge whatever that travel is and make that money right on the front end, or you better have a plan for that investment that you made on that travel. And sometimes that pays off and sometimes it doesn't. But at the end of the day, that is one of the things I hate about destination weddings is like they're so much more expensive for you than you realize. And it's very, very hard. And probably if you did like 10, 20, 30 of them a year, however many somebody who does that, you probably have more Amex points. You probably got a hotel program that you use. It becomes cheaper the more you do it.
Yep.
But for us, we don't do that many. And if you're just getting started out and you don't know this crap yet, you probably don't have any of that stuff built up either. Yep. And so I'll tell you, it is much more expensive than you realize, and it's much harder to make money on. And once you start to creep up there, and this is the fear I see, like when I start to get into a certain financial threshold, the concern can be, oh crap, this couple, the more expensive I start charging for this travel expenses, the more likely they are to just get someone local and not send me out there anyway. And so that situation also is like, that comes up, right? Mm-hmm. And I think people get nervous about that too because of the cost. And that's one of the negatives. So what is something that you really love about destination weddings?
Well, I think first and foremost, the appeal for a lot of people, including myself, is probably I do like to travel. I like to see new places. I like to get different light. I'm a light catcher, like you.
An explorer of light.
A capture of light. Yeah, and just being in a new place.
I call myself a meanderer of light.
Being a creative, I think always having something new that challenges you is something that a lot of people are interested. Yeah, like okay, we're in Napa. How is the light different than in New England? Like I think it's very different. We were talking to the photographer there about that, and so it's fun. It's dusty there, so it looks pretty cinematic and cool. So there's that. Plus, you also get to meet people that are just different. A wedding in California is way different than a wedding in New England. So there's a lot of elements there. I think the challenge is fun to overcome.
Yeah, I love that. Like we're gonna talk more about some of the challenges, but like I like things that are hard. I enjoy that. And destination weddings, like the negative is I hate that they're hard, but I love that they're hard. Mm-hmm. Like I love that like there are a few times where you're working and you're like, does it even matter if I'm good at this? Mm-hmm. Like I can just be whatever, and it doesn't even matter. Like it's the same. And destination weddings will challenge you, and you'll at the end of the time you'll be like, feel like I did the best I could with what I had. Like we can talk specifically about this wedding last week or some other weddings we've shot. But I remember last week it was 110 degrees the wedding day. I don't think we nailed all our shots. I think there's a lot we left on the table in terms of shots, but I know that there's nothing that was left on the table in terms of effort, and we maximized our skills to the best of our ability. That was crazy. There was so much work, and at the end of the time, I don't walk away from a destination wedding often feeling like I didn't give it my best shot. Mm-hmm. And for me, that matters, the challenge of it. And as opposed to some local weddings where you're like, I don't know, I don't want to say I didn't give it my best shot, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just easy.
Yeah.
It was easy, and it's not stimulating.
I think another perk, and we kind of mentioned it before, is the portfolio builder side. You know, for your client to see that you worked somewhere else besides where you currently are, but that you also have plenty of work in the area that they're getting married, is a big deal. And
it adds value to the client, not just you.
It's really the only way I think that you can demand more destination work, if that's an avenue that you want to pursue, is if, hey, they've seen that you've been to, you know, Barbados, that you've been to, you know, other parts of the country, that you've been to Italy or whatever, that people are going to book whatever's on your website, really. So if there's only California weddings on your website, they might be like, oh, maybe he doesn't know how to, I don't know. You know, all these weird things. You know, all these weird things that brides come up with. They're like,
have you ever worked that venue?
Have you ever worked the venue? And you're like, no. And they're like, oh, I don't know if he can do it. It's like, I've held a camera before, and I've been to plenty of wedding venues with beaches. Like, they're all the same. Like, just because I haven't been there, I can get there literally 15 minutes beforehand, walk around the property, and say, this is where the best light is going to be. This is the secret spot that everyone goes to. I can look at Instagram and see what other people do. Like, it's just it's silly. But, you know, that's the way couples think. They're like, hey, I want to know that you can do it. And actually, I would say for destination weddings, just getting there is an element.
I actually think it matters in destination weddings.
Yeah.
Like, if you've never done a destination wedding, there's so much to screw up.
Yep.
I'll give you a story about screwing up at a destination wedding, and I won't throw anyone under the bus, but I will just say it wasn't me. We did a destination shoot. What's funny is he's on The Bachelor now, but with a model.
Yeah.
Who's a friend of ours.
Yep.
In Italy. We go to this top of this mountain, look at this location, scout this place out, plan it all out. Next day, we go, okay, we're going to go to this top of the mountain and we're shooting. It was a very, very tight shooting schedule that day. It was more of a, we get to the top of the mountain, which took a little longer than anticipated because they have 1-lane roads in Italy on the Amalfi Coast. You get to the top of the mountain, you start shooting, literally within like 5 minutes of shooting, the gimbal dies.
Yes. And this was after, in the morning, I was like, hey, make sure you're always charging the gimbal batteries because I'm concerned about it running out. We're going to be using it all day. And they died. I was not happy. So everyone knows, it wasn't me either. No.
We fly all the way out to Italy.
Yep.
We have all this pre-production. When you get to the top of that mountain, they have no power. They have no outlets. They have nothing we can do. And remember this part about it? We get to the top of the mountain. We go, and the previous day, we pay this lady because you can't call her anything for this ruins in the top of a mountain in the Amalfi Coast. We pay or tell this lady, hey, can we use this tomorrow at this time? Oh, yeah. We try to translate. We get the best. We get there. There's a wedding there.
Yeah. Typical Italian fashion. They're like, oh, yeah, we're sorry. Yeah. We have another wedding here too, but you can shoot at the same time. We're like, what? But
so there was a wedding there, and like there was all these crazy things that if you were in the States would have never happened.
Yeah, yeah.
You could have just charged your battery.
Yep.
You know, we can't do that.
So yeah, we're talking about challenges, right?
Yes.
Of destination weddings now. I think one of the things that isn't probably talked about or really thought about a whole lot, which is challenging for me, is the social side of things. Because usually when I show up and shoot a wedding that's right down the street, I'm going to show up and I'm Jared. I'm going to be, super friendly. I'm going to be outgoing. I'm going to hop in and, hey, what's up, guys? How's everyone doing today? How's everyone feeling? When I travel for an entire day, I'm not normal Jared. I'm like ready to go to bed, ready to hop in the pool and like relax and not talk to anyone and listen to a podcast, Jared. So when I show up to a rehearsal dinner after traveling all day, I'm not ready to go. I'm like, okay, so finding a way to like push myself to be like, okay, now I have to be sociable even though I don't want to be. That's hard. That stuff is challenging.
Well, and it's like you can do things that can help, like go a day even earlier than you have to get calibrated. And if you're at a certain level financially and demand wise, if we were getting like hundreds and hundreds of leads for destination weddings every year and we could demand that, that's what I would demand. I would say, hey, we need, in order for us to do our best, we need to get there a day with no shooting.
Yep.
I don't think most people are doing that.
Because what happened with with this wedding is we arrived to Napa. We dropped our bags off. We put the cameras together super fast. We were tired. 6 hour flight, 2 hour drive.
We had shot the day before, by the way.
We had shot a full wedding the day before in 100-degree weather in New Hampshire. And then we're in California setting up. Go, go, go. It's literally been nonstop. We got 6 hours of sleep the night before, 8 hours worth of travel. And so then we have to show up to a wine tasting, which after being super tired and hungry and like a wine tasting does some damage. And now we're supposed to shoot. And it's like, I'll tell you, man, I wasn't ready to go. Like, we got good stuff, but I was like, you know, I had to get myself to a place.
And there was no other way.
I remember sitting down with a couple and I was like, man, I really like them. I wish I was like cooler right now. I wish I was like more sociable and like, I was like looking at them like, I have probably nothing to say to you right now. And I always have something to say to somebody. I can always make conversation, but I'm like, I don't have it right now, man.
Even the next day we were shooting that thing and I was like, I got to go, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
that was stressful for you.
I'm not set up for tomorrow. I'm not ready. And I'm not, I'm like.
And it's just because we were go from, you know, the get-go.
And some problems had arisen during the rehearsal where I was like, not the rehearsal dinner, but the rehearsal itself, where I was like, didn't know that problem was going to happen.
Yep.
And I wanted to go and deal with it. So, and I'm glad I did. But at the end of the day, like, destination weddings are very stressful. Mm-hmm. You're very out of your element. Every time I've ever done one, and I think this is the other thing else, I wouldn't say I love or hate it about destination weddings, but like, they're often very disappointing, you know, and I don't want to like specifically point out people, but like I can remember like we did a wedding one time in the Dominican Republic. It was, I don't know that we thought it was going to be awesome, but I remember thinking like, that was worse than a normal wedding. Like, like you don't have like control, especially when you go to third world countries where like maybe the resort is nice, maybe it's nice to have a vacation, but they don't really have a hospitality culture. That's, or like the industry, they don't have like literal things like they make the bride walk across like a mile-long resort, and I'm like, hey, you got to get her a cart.
Yeah, have her walk on the sand in high heels or something. Like, yeah, and that wedding specifically, I'm glad you brought that up because I remember the thing that was tough about that wedding was we were like, yeah, we're going to do this cool job. And then it was at the Hard Rock Hotel in the Dominican, which is like the Hard Rock. And it's like...
It's not where I want to shoot weddings.
Yeah, it's not very conducive to romantic culture when everyone is blasted in the pools like everywhere you go. It's just a different.
I just remember one guy roaming around the resort, like he literally just looked like a homeless man.
Yeah,
like it was like 4:00 and he was just falling down drunk and he was just laying on the sidewalk.
Yeah. So how do you make, you know, how do you make an experience like that
nice beach,
seem romantic despite the surroundings? You know, we're creatives. One of our job is to find creative solutions to that. But probably the hardest part was the wedding came. It was beautiful when we got there. Beautiful the day before. The wedding day comes. It piss pours all day without stopping all day. I think. And I was shooting photos for that wedding.
It stopped for the ceremony.
Stopped for the ceremony, but it was like still pretty drizzly. And then at the end of the night, we got like 5 minutes of sunset. Beautiful. And so that was like it was all worth it. But like the whole day was so brutal. Because it was just raining. And we were like, this isn't the film that we thought we were going to create. That's disappointing.
No, it didn't. And you have no control over that. But like that film is not tropical. And it was pre-drone too.
Yeah.
So like, and they didn't fly us in soon enough to get B-roll. And like, that was one of the weddings where we learned the lesson. Like, when you go on a wedding, you got to give yourself, if you're a filmmaker or especially photography, and a lot of these problems are specific to filmmaking, I think, like, and probably planners have their own set of pre-production problems.
Yeah.
I don't want to say photographers don't have as much to deal with, but like, I don't think they do. I think a photographer shows up, does a session with the couple, and then shoots a day.
Yep.
And it's not that different. For filmmakers, we need to make this travel film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's what the couple's expecting. They're expecting like B-roll of this location and a film that's why they're flying you out and spending all that money. They don't want you to just show up and like, that's my opinion.
Yep.
And so like you need all this time, and like sometimes you shoot the footage like Barbados. That was a nice wedding in a lot of ways. But the ceremonial location was like during the ceremony in Barbados, someone stole my shoes.
Yeah. I remember that ceremony being actually
so loud.
Napa and Barbados might have been the sweatiest I've ever been in my life at a wedding.
But at least in Barbados they had like wind.
Yeah, I just remember taking my shirt off at the ceremony and wringing it out like with sweat because it was just so hot and everyone is sweating like that, so you don't feel as bad because you're like, all right.
Well, I just remember the beach in Barbados was like 10 feet deep.
Yeah.
It was like right on the beach. It's not like in Massachusetts where the beaches are pretty big.
Yeah.
Like a lot of, if you've never been to the Caribbean, a lot of the beaches that are just like grass beach.
Yeah.
It's like 10 feet of beach and then water.
Yeah.
It's not like.
I think you're right, though. And I say this as a photographer. I think when you're doing photography at these events, you're like, okay, where's the location? Where do I need to put the people in the location? And how long am I shooting for? I'm shooting this hour to this hour. And then after that, I'm done. So it's just putting the pieces together. When you're shooting a video, you're like always on, right? Mm-hmm. Like if we're driving down the street, I remember we took a drive through Barbados to just find some good B-roll, and like we went to a place that Kelly Slater really likes. We went to, I think it was like
I forgot what, it's called Bathsheba.
Yeah. Good surfing spot in Barbados, and we were like, we have to go over there because that's where some pretty sites are that we can shoot some B-roll, because the rest is like it's never exactly what you expect, because you're like, oh, I'll just send a drone up, but then you send a drone up and it's like, you can't fly here. It's gross looking. It's just bad looking. There's just a Walmart there or something.
Some of it is like you're competing with your own expectations or the client's expectations, or like stupid Alex Douglas creates this film that makes Bahamas look amazing, and then you're like, you didn't stay.
Yeah. I remember even on this trip when we were in Napa, you and I were driving through, and as soon as we hit Napa, the city, we were like, this is stupid. This is like not nice. But we hadn't gotten to Calistoga yet.
Oh, I knew.
But we were like, if I flew a drone here, it would just look like Kansas or something. It'd be like, it wouldn't look that great. So you have to find the location. So it's
couples
challenging
pretty much go like, this one spot I'm like literally having my ceremony in. He's beautiful, therefore it's all beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, you can get some drone of the ceremony location. Oh, you want me to get drone of a 20 by 20 square?
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Like it needs to be like, like filmmaking has so much more scope involved.
Yeah. But even as a photographer, I think when you go to somewhere like Napa or Yosemite or whatever, it does take a lot of pre-production to find the spots, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, I want to put them here and do this very specific thing with them.
Yes.
So there's a little bit of,
I wish we did petrified forest this time, by the way.
Yeah.
I wish we'd have done that. That would have been a better choice.
I wish I could have spent a week with them, but then it's like, what's the balance?
Well, now you got to make that money.
Yeah.
So anyway, destination weddings are challenging. We don't like the cost. We do love the challenge, and we love to travel. Something else I really hate about destination weddings is I kind of mentioned it, but the pressure to do this extra good job.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's self-induced, or do you think that's by the couple?
For me, it's probably only, I don't know really if the couple expects it. I expect it of me. I expect it of us. Like, because I don't like them. Like, I don't enjoy doing them. Like, in the sense that, like I still am so tired. I'm so behind on so many things at work. I'm away from my family. It's expensive. There's so many things that I think my overall personal experience with destination weddings is like, I know they're important and I like to make great work, so they're necessary. Mm-hmm. But I don't have a lot of fun at them. Like, Marilyn always makes fun of us, like, oh, your work husband Jared, you guys are traveling around to these beautiful locations
in mineral pools in Napa.
And I'm like, yeah, we sat at a pool for 30 minutes.
It doesn't help when you send my wife photos. By
I
the
did that
way.
on purpose.
I was like pretending I was having a bad time the whole time, and then you send her this photo of me in a pool, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you're having a terrible time."
That's what they always do.
She just had a baby, and she's like 3 weeks after having a C-section at home with the baby crying in her arms, and I'm in a pool. I'm like, "Baby, I really don't want to go on this trip.
I don't want to go.
It's gonna be tough." And I knew it would be terrible, so I wasn't lying.
No.
But it
The fact that you had to sit in a pool to be able to survive your day is more indicative of how hard it is.
Yeah.
Literally, like, we're like, oh my gosh, my muscles hurt so bad.
I have to eat a crab.
A crab Benedict.
Crab Benedict in the morning to make up for this. Like,
Don't get me wrong. There's I want to say something nice about Solage. That was a wonderful hotel, great hospitality. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like, I would have rather been home.
Yeah.
Like,
or at Solage with your wife. And
100%. Yeah. It is not like being there to relax. It's not relaxing at all.
Yeah.
You're at a deficit. Like, between like being charged, recharged, and like being exhausted in your batteries.
Yep.
When you get back for a destination wedding, especially the day after, because I guess I would give a little tip. If you can get the couple to fly you in a day early and let you stay a day after, you will feel much better when you get home. And you'll get to capture your footage and maybe even back it up to the cloud before you get on a plane, which is always great.
That's a good tip. Slow down there, because I think that's very true. Like, we shot the wedding on Friday. We were there till midnight.
Which is 3 a.m. our time. But we stayed on East Coast time while we were out there.
Did we? I don't know.
Yeah, we were getting up at like 6 a.m., 7 a.m. We didn't sleep till like 9 and like change our time over.
So we shot the wedding. It was 110 degrees all day. Like, I brought 2 shirts, and by the end of the time, I probably could have wrung them out with my sweat because it was just so brutal. You had to wear a freaking mask all day. It was just so brutal. And so we're there till midnight. We've been there for 13 hours on site. Just brutal. And then the next morning we're like, oh yeah, 1 o'clock, fly out of San Francisco, right? Thinking, oh yeah, 1 o'clock, that's pretty easy. We'll drive 2 hours. But you got to be there 2 hours early because we have 7 bags. You got to be there. You got to start driving 2 hours before that because we're in Napa. Down
and
to
you
San
never
Francisco.
know when you're going to have the traffic.
Never know when you're going to hit traffic. And also, we have 7 bags we have to pack too. That, like, we could have packed. Actually, we couldn't have packed the night before.
We couldn't have done that.
Literally, as soon as we got back, I fell asleep. I hit the hay and I fell asleep. It was like I couldn't even control my body. So we had to wake up at like 6 or 7 in the morning, get breakfast, and we had these dreams of like, oh, maybe we'll go to the pool one more time. Nope.
No.
You know. So having that day and flying out later in the day, I would always
even if you could fly out later in the day. I mean, it's challenging.
I like red-eye flights personally because I will sleep the whole time.
I had to get up and go to church the next day.
But on Sunday,
but I would have.
I stayed in bed all day. All day, I stayed in bed and watched The Office with my wife and my baby, my new baby. That's all we did.
And you probably loved it.
We loved it, and you know, I let my wife sleep because she had been alone with a 3-week-old for all week.
One thing I will say that's a tip too is, I think if you're not a big time destination person, even if you are, but if you're not big and you're like maybe only doing a couple every year, use it to piggyback your vacation with your family, because it won't feel this way. Like if I knew, for instance, that we were going to spend 4 more days with our wives in Napa after that, I think we wouldn't even be talking about being tired. It wouldn't even have been we would have and it's a great opportunity. You can actually save money, all these things. It doesn't always work out, especially if you do it a lot. So that's one of the things I hate though, like I was saying, and before we got off on a tangent, is like, I don't love how I'm oftentimes disappointed because
I do think a lot of times it's put on your shoulders by yourself. It's self-inflicted because you're like, this is my opportunity
because it's the end all be all.
Yeah, this is my opportunity to compete with Alex Douglas. And like, obviously all of this isn't a competition, but I think even someone like Alex Douglas would say he's super competitive. That's one thing I love about Alex, actually, is he's like, I want to make the best wedding film because it's like a personal thing for him. Right?
Yeah, you're trying to show everybody what you got.
Yeah.
And like show yourself what you got. You're trying to say like, I'm good at this. And like, when you get great content and you screw it up, like that means you suck.
Yeah. I mean, in getting to know all of these great photographers, great videographers in the last couple of years since actually starting WeddingPros, that's something that I really admire, because you and I are super competitive, like in other ways, because we're no means would I ever be able to compare myself to Ray, Alex, Henry, any of the, Aaron, any of these awesome filmmakers. Or
and they're
like a
way
Jose
better.
Villa
Like
or
if they
whoever.
were doing a podcast on destination, it would be much more detailed because they're way better at it than we are.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's it's self-inflicted, because you're like, nope, they still have my number. They can still kick my butt every single time at doing these destination weddings and making them look incredible, shooting freaking horses running through a field. Like, how do they even how do you plan to get horses running through a field at 5 a.m.?
I mean,
that
you should
golden
go.
hour light. How do you even do that? It's like, I'm still in school, man. So.
Yeah, you'll walk away. It's very humbling, but I think
Because the drone I got was Saturday morning after I'd shot a full hour day, and I was like, oh, the light looks pretty good. I'm just going to run up the drone, and hopefully it looks okay, and I can get some vineyards. And we shot a little bit of the vineyard when we first got there. That was like, this is perfect. But the rest was like full chance, man. It was like not as planned as I wish it would have been. So
there's never as much time as you want on destination wedding, and everybody, as much as I know that, and every time we go and do it, I do plan for that. I feel like I'm always unprepared for that. I'm always unprepared to not get to do the things I was expecting to do. And I feel like there's always an opportunity to do better in those things, but you kind of don't, it's not like a normal wedding where you're like, next weekend I'll do it better. Right? It's like everything is unique. Like you might never get to shoot another wedding in Napa Valley again.
Yeah.
And so it's like, sometimes you get
now I know the couple will look at that film that we just did for them and think it's incredible.
Yeah, they'll love it.
They're going to love it. So, yeah, I think it's self-inflicted. And
it
should
is
be.
self. And it should be. And that's really, I think what it is what we're really talking about today is destination weddings. We're kind of rambling, which I'm fine with, because, we're just talking about our experiences. But destination weddings, are they really the end-all, be-all? Is this industry's infatuation with destination weddings, is it justified? Is it justified as the mark of being in the top of the industry? Is it something everyone, I had someone ask me the other day, how do you get destination weddings? How did you move into the destination market? That's the big, how many times have you seen that as a podcast topic, as a post? Everybody's asking this question because that's why the pressure comes from.
It's a status symbol. I think it's a lot like YouTubers. It's I know a ton of broke YouTubers who travel, because they're paying for it out of pocket. They're not making money doing it, but they produce a video that's, halfway decent. I think it's the same in the wedding, industry, although you can probably make money off of a destination wedding, not because someone's going to hire you to do a destination in the future, but because someone local is they travel, they must be legitimate. Maybe they make any money off of that destination wedding. So I've
heard a lot of stories about
about
filmmakers and photographers and planners doing that exact thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's the be all end all. I think if you are generating a lot of demand, you probably will get asked to do destination. But then it's a question of, I know plenty of photographers now who have done destination or filmmakers who have done destination their entire career, and they're like, I don't like traveling anymore. If I could just shoot a wedding right down the street, that would be heaven. And I could charge the same amount. That would be amazing. Maybe it does get to a certain point. Again, depends your business model. If you are going to shoot 10 weddings a year and you want to charge 15 to 20 grand a year for them, you're probably going to have to travel for those clients, because that's a certain clientele. They don't live right down the street from us. We live in, our office is in Milford, Massachusetts. There's no $10,000 wedding. $10,000 wedding.
I don't even know that there's a $4,000 wedding film in Boston or in Milford.
In Milford, yeah. So,
what's funny? We've never once shot our hometowns.
Yeah.
I've never once shot a film where I live.
Nope.
But weird.
You're gonna have to travel for those people, and that's just gonna have to be your model. I do think there are plenty of ways to be successful and see yourself as successful by just doing local weddings,
You know what's really funny is we always get digged on by some people as being like volume, and these people think they're a big deal because they shoot a couple weddings in Yosemite.
Yeah. And yeah.
And it's like, you made 30 grand with your business. Like, we made like...
And you probably shot that one Yosemite wedding for free. So, like, good job. That's cool that you shot in Yosemite, but it doesn't mean you're a successful business. So there's a little bit of back and forth. It's like, yes, if you're making money doing destination, that's successful. If you're going to, Napa
we can make
and making
math
no money, like we pretty much just did, that's not a sign of success. That's a learning experience for us in a portfolio.
Or marketing. It's marketing.
It's marketing. I think we're successful because we have a successful business and we make money doing the things that we do back at home. Let me ask you this. If you were only to do destination weddings, is that something you would even want to do?
So I feel like with Huxley Film, what I'd like to do is only shoot those. And most likely, they'll almost all be destination.
How many?
Oh, man. I say 10 because that's the financial number. But, like, I think about, like, doing 10 of those weeks. It doesn't sound very fun to me.
No. It doesn't sound fun at all. I would say it's like 6.
I was thinking 5.
Yeah.
So, like, I could do 5 of those weeks a year.
Mm-hmm. I also think about the edit, too. It's
me too. Well, because it's 4 days. You're going to do a good job. Like, I mean, that's just personal preference, I guess. But I don't like, I just don't enjoy it that much. I enjoy doing a good job, and there's a part of it I enjoy. But, like, when I think about it ahead of time, like, me, I'm like, I have to travel. We have to get a plane. We have to do all this.
You hate travel less than I do. I'm much more likely to be like, yeah, it's going to suck, but, like, I'll just deal with it because then I get to go to Napa or whatever.
What I don't like, what I'm not willing to do anymore that I was willing to do in the olden days was, like, I'm not willing to stay in crappy hotels. I'm not willing to do any. I'm not willing to give.
You don't want to sleep on my friend's floor in Bakersfield, California,
with all your friends around them. No, I'm not willing to do that. And I'm not gonna do any favors.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna be comfortable, not just because I'm just a diva. Because there's some stuff I am a diva, but there's some things that we know now that we didn't know before about, like, client buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
If the client is flying you out there and they're not willing to give you a session the day before, that wedding is going to suck.
Yeah.
Like, it is. It's not going to be what you would expect. And so we know that now, and we don't want to take days away from our families, away from our company.
Yeah.
To just shoot a crappy thing.
Yeah.
If I'm going to get in a plane, I'm going to choose something
This is good. Yeah, this is good because I think something that I have learned in the last few years of trying to get into this kind of upper echelon market is if certain people aren't willing to buy into, hey, we're going to shoot with you a couple days before the wedding, maybe even a couple months before
whatever
the wedding.
Whatever it is that you need to make your process as good as you think.
Yep. Like, I'm almost like, this isn't going to work. And it's not going to be worth the hell that we're going to go through to make this happen. And, it's hard enough to do things great when everything goes perfect. If you throw a person in who's like, yeah, we're not really into that, like, then I'm not going to be willing to travel for that person. I'm not going to be willing. Or if I do travel for that person, I'm going to charge them a lot.
Or just like the whole, like, I'm not willing to do, like, oh, we're all staying at Airbnbs. You could stay. No, I'm going to stay where I'm going to, like, I'm not going to rip you off. I'm not going to stay at, like, the Four Seasons or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're not going to tell me where I'm going to stay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, and in my honest opinion, and this is where I want to get financially, but we're not there, is like, if you don't value me enough to put me up where you're staying, it's not going to be a relationship that's going to work in terms of, like, you're not going to do what it takes to, like, if it's not worth an extra $600 to put me where you're staying for the whole trip, why the heck would you work with me to shoot great footage 2 days before that?
Yep.
Like, it's not important to you. And honestly, like, if it's not important to you, it's not important to me.
Yep. And you want your client to understand, like, we have an understanding of, like, who each other are, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I understand you like a certain type of lifestyle. You're maybe if you're hiring me for like $10,000, you're more than likely wealthy. Like you can afford a $10,000 wedding film, or a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 photographer, whatever. You're wealthy, so you're used to a certain standard. We are also used to a certain standard too. We have an understanding there of like, especially when you're filmmaking, it's important for them to see you not just as the help.
You have to be like a
you
somewhat
have to be a
peers.
personality.
You have to be like equals, and like
we have similar experiences. You like wine tasting. It's something I have also done as well. It's not something that's new to me. This isn't. I'm not gonna be shy under the bright lights.
I'm not gonna walk into the 5-star hotel and be like, "Wow, whoa, this is amazing!"
You're gonna be professional, and it's mutual respect. It's like you have to respect me as a creative. You have to respect me as a professional to be able to put me up in the same hotel as you are staying, and maybe I don't have to be in the corner suite, but you're going to put me up in the same hotel because I have to do my job.
By the way, some destination weddings, you actually have to stay at the hotel that you're shooting at because it makes it easier. They literally don't let you shoot on their property.
If you're not staying
no
there.
outside vendors.
Yep.
So the only way around it is you have to be, like in Mexico, for instance, you have to be a guest at the wedding. So you have to stay. So that's just a little tip. If you are doing Caribbean weddings, you need to bring that up with them and have that conversation. Say, hey, you probably need me to book me there.
So this is kind of a little bit maybe off topic and probably very relevant to the times. But how did you find travel with the current coronavirus?
So I've actually traveled a ton during coronavirus, which, sorry.
You've actually spread a ton of the coronavirus?
Hey, I got tested. I don't have COVID. I did my tests.
Yes.
But
antibody tests?
No.
Okay.
I think I got coronavirus when we were in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I thought.
Which that was before.
After the Boston party.
That was before Vegas.
Mm-hmm. What was?
I mean, that was before coronavirus, Vegas.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I feel like I got it like in February.
Yep.
But regardless, I did Vegas. I've done LA. I've done Mexico. I feel like I did one other trip that I can't remember.
Napa.
No, I did Napa. I feel like there's another one that I'm forgetting. Mm. But I've flown a lot, and I thought it was fine. Like, I enjoy it. There's nobody in the airports. They load the planes from the back to the front. The only thing I don't like is I can't have, like, a real beverage on the plane.
Yep.
But other than that, I think it's great.
I am just like... wearing a mask for that
long
period of time sucks.
But I didn't really...
Getting a coronavirus test as soon as you get back sucks. But for the most part, like, did you feel ever like you were unsafe?
On another flight I did.
Yeah,
on the way back from... My wife and I went on a vacation. On the way back, we did... And so shame on you, American. Shame on you, Southwest. Shame on you, any of you freaking airports that are trying to make as much money as possible and not giving people space between their seats. That's so irresponsible. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I made sure this time around that I stayed with, like, Alaskan, JetBlue, Delta. Great job, guys. And I felt great on JetBlue, and I did a Delta flight, and I felt great on Delta. But when we did... American, they just packed us in, and like I was sitting next to a stranger, and it was like they're coughing, and like I was like, oh no. So no, like on another flight, I think it's like if you just I say on another flight I felt like it was unsafe, and if you just book, I think one of the airlines where they actually have ethics and morals, and they don't make you sit next to another person, and they actually have like loading techniques that are ethical and make sense. Did you feel it all?
No, I didn't feel unsafe. I mean, I really don't feel unsafe in many cases. Pretty much like even at weddings, like sometimes like nowadays people aren't wearing masks at weddings because they're on the dance floor or whatever. And it's just like, I don't really feel unsafe as long as I'm keeping my distance. And I mean, we've really been outside for a majority of these weddings.
What I heard is the coronavirus dies in heat.
Sunlight. It's like a vampire.
Yeah. So it was really hot. So.
I didn't feel. I don't think I felt unsafe at all on that flight. We were on JetBlue. Now, by the way, is a great time to invest in Delta and JetBlue stock if if you're an investor out there, I think that's kind of where
Buy low.
buy low, man. I think it was at last I checked, Delta's at like 25, down from 60, and it's, I mean, a great airline. So yeah,
It's definitely gonna double.
yeah, it's definitely gonna double. And even with the recession, I mean, yeah, these are the things that I'm looking at right now. I'm like, as soon as I get a little bit of money, I'm throwing money at these things. But
Wedding Pros podcast will become the stock podcast.
the Wedding Investors podcast, yeah.
Hey, so destination weddings are a big part of our industry. They're important, but at the same time, I guess we would want to say, like, we love a lot of things about them. There's a lot to hate. They're not for everyone, and like in terms of building your whole business on them. I think it's great to get a few, but at the end of the day, like, I do think it's like an intentional choice that you have to make. So I guess the last question I was going to ask you is, like, how do you think, maybe we can personalize it, but maybe we can speak towards other people, but like people who are thinking like, I need to get into the destination market. Like, what would you say to that person to maybe talk them maybe not into doing that, or kind of help? How do you help that person make that decision, whether they should or shouldn't?
I was going to ask you that question.
Okay, well, it's
No. Let me answer.
Okay.
I would say destination weddings, it isn't the be all end all. Don't feel like you're not successful because you don't shoot destination weddings. You could probably be more successful than plenty of people who are. But if you are looking to get into the destination field, I would say a majority probably come from planners. So finding a planner that enjoys you and potentially has destination work is probably a good start. Like we just got hired for a wedding in Denver next year, or Aspen next year, and that's from a local planner who doesn't know anyone in the Aspen area, who's like, hey, these people want to,
which is how it often happens, by the way.
They want my team there. And so they got a wedding out there. They are flying us out there, and we're shooting an amazing wedding there next year. And so I think that's one way that you could get into it if it's something that you want to do. Also, probably just travel. And so this is going back to kind of that conversation about people who shoot destination weddings for a living versus the people that are portfolio builders, which I kind of I like to badger this conversation because I think it's interesting, because I honestly...
It's definitely a totally different process.
I can see both sides, but as usual, the people who are whining, I usually would tell them to suck it up and just deal with it. And like, if you're losing work, it's probably not due to the fact that someone's shooting a portfolio piece. It's probably due to the fact there's some other things with your business that are problems. But the people who are like, oh, they're taking all my work kind of thing, usually the people who are working for a lower price are working for people that are not going to be able to afford a $10,000
let's be real. Destination wedding, the real market in destination. If you're like Jose Villa or some
KT Mary or
some
Tech
mega
or,
person,
Alex Douglas, Ray Roman, whoever.
You're not, maybe you're booking that vendor directly because you're like, I love their work. They won freaking WPPI's Grandmaster Award, right? Which you can't portfolio build around. Like, that person won it and you didn't.
Yep.
Or they don't even talk to Ray Roman. They just talk to Ray Roman's planner, and Ray Roman's planner friend says, hey, Ray Roman, we're doing this wedding in Dubai next year. You're going to come.
Yep.
Like, it has nothing to do with the couple.
Yep.
You got to have the work. You got to have the work. You like to impress the planner.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And to impress the people involved, but like they need to be able to show they're not going to show their client something that doesn't represent them. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's not like this big SEO thing where this couple who has a $2 million wedding is searching Google to find best filmmaker. Mm-hmm. Like you can't, it's not like that.
No. Yeah. Yep.
So that's why I'm like, the portfolio builder thing is like, that helps you sell local weddings. Mm-hmm. It doesn't, and it maybe would get you a destination wedding, but it makes the person booking you locally feel like, oh, they're a bigger deal. Yeah. Helps you raise your price locally because it adds value and mystique to your brand.
Yeah. And I would say if you're the person that's complaining about people taking your work and your destination person, whatever, I mean, whenever you complain about that, you just seem like the old guy who has like the photo studio in town.
Seem poor to me.
Who's complaining about people that don't use Flash.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you seem like when you're complaining about that. You're like, all these kids taking my work, they don't even use Flash. They're just out there winging it, using natural light. Like, don't be that guy.
Yeah,
Like,
well, it just makes you seem like you're not getting booked and you're desperate and sour grapes. And, I think at the end of the day, what I would say to someone who's trying to make this decision is, first of all, take into consideration all the negatives. Like with the money, like you need to get your price point way up.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to work with couples that can afford to like actually take care of you. And at first you won't care, but I think if you do it a lot, you'll eventually really want that. And so, your work needs to be good. You got to have the work, you got to have the skill, the connections, and you got to make sure that the negatives, like the planning, and maybe your product doesn't need that. Maybe your product is like, I just show up the day of and people are happy with that. And that's all I ever want to make. And whatever, you'd rather make it all around the country than in your hometown. Like, make a decision based on all the negatives. And really, this is what I was going to say. If you're trying to decide what to do, don't do it with this preconceived notion that this is where everyone ultimately needs to end up to finally be something in the industry. Mm-hmm. Because I don't think everyone who's making wedding art or planning, or I don't even know, there's probably not a lot of destination florists, but I know there's a lot of destination planners, some DJs. Like, is it cool? Is it at the top of the game? Yeah, probably. But like, you're not necessarily making more money. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's important. Is for me, I'm in this to make money. Like, I want to make good art. And like, when I'm in the day, when I'm in the process, I have a hard time compromising on the art. But when I am away from it and I'm thinking about my choices on the business, it's easy for me to separate that. And I look at it as like, well, that was fine for this week, but I probably lost money on it. I'm not going to do that all the time. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that couple would have paid $10,000 for it, by the way.
Yeah. And I would say too, like, if you're going to do destinations and building a portfolio isn't the worst thing in the world. I think it's a good thing to, I would say, just if you're going to make concessions on certain things, like, yeah, I'm going to come out there and I'm going to eat some of this travel or whatever, make sure it's for a couple that's going to actually
that's
give you a great opportunity to do something maybe unique, maybe try something new. Like, hey, I'm going to do some lens whacking or, freelancing. Sorry. People out there don't like the term lens whacking. Freelancing or whatever you want to do. Make sure it's something that they're willing to make concessions on too.
Yes. Yeah, if you're gonna do the portfolio builder, you better make sure it actually builds your portfolio.
Yeah.
And you need to preserve creative control. And normally I'm like, that's stupid. But when it comes to destination, you're paying a really heavy price. Mm-hmm. And so like, I think you do need to hold a little strong on your creative vision, especially in destination, especially if you're not charging them a premium. Yep. If I was charging that couple like $12,000 and they didn't care what we did and we're at that point, I don't know that I would have put all that effort in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that seems counterintuitive, but like, I'm there to build a portfolio, so I'm going to go extra. But if that couple was like, we don't care, I'd be like, that's fine.
Okay,
and I would
we'll
show
just
up.
Do a solid film.
And and they're going to pay me $12,000 either way. Yep. Great. And I promise you, like, if you're doing it for portfolio building, which is what a lot of people are going to do, then you needs to build your portfolio. It needs to be good.
Yep.
And you need a couple, and not all couples are suited for that.
Yep.
So that's a big thing. So, hey guys, thank you so much. It was a good discussion about weddings and destination. Like I said, we're not the experts on the subject, but it is something we have some experience about, and it's the type of thing that I think fits into a business plan, right? Mm-hmm. Thinking about destination.
The thing I'm appreciative of you, Jason, is it's always self-reflection. So like, what do we do good? What do we do bad? And I think that's always important for every creative, every business person to do, is always be reflecting on these things. What went well, what went poorly, and how can we get better? And I think that's a big part with destination. There's always plenty that you can get better at.
Yep.
So good discussion, man. I like it.
Yeah, dude. So subscribe, Check us out on YouTube if you haven't seen it. Some of these are definitely better on YouTube than they are on the podcast if you are only listening.
Well, some of them we do our hair, and some of them, we just kind of show up and you get what you get.
And you always have some Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah. We're not sponsored yet, but Dunkin',
we're true New Englanders.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely subscribe. Check us out on YouTube, and of course, we got all the podcast platforms. And stay tuned. We got more episodes coming your way on the Wedding Pros podcast.